Okay, Year 7, this is your silent lesson for constructing your methodology section of your student experiment. So in front of you, you should have yourself, headphones, your template that you've been given and your task sheet so you can refer to them appropriately, especially for the glossary. What we're going to be looking at is an exemplar and then some ideas that you need to do in order to complete your methodology independently. So your methodology, it's like a recipe, but it's scientific. So think of it as the purpose of it is to make sure that the reader, if they wanted to do the experiment themselves, they could follow your exact methodology, and hypothetically, so potentially, they should get very similar to results to you because they've followed your procedure. So that is what we are looking at today. How do you write that effectively so that you are being, so that the person could so that your method allows, links back to your research question, So it shows how you can acquire the data to answer your research question. So if we have a look here at our balloon rocket race experiment, that's the experiment taken straight from the one that we did in class. And then you have a balloon rocket. So that's our research question, So does the number of breaths affect the distance traveled? So if we're looking for things in here, so if I have a look down here, so let's start down here with our criteria. So the 3 tiers that we're looking at for that is a considered methodology that enables the collection of sufficient and relevant data. So that's what we're aiming for. Otherwise, if you don't quite get there, you're going to go for the methodology that enables the collection of relevant data. And then the last one is you have a methodology, the collection is insufficient, so it doesn't quite explain everything and it doesn't collect the appropriate data. So you might suggest something that isn't actually to your experiment. Or answers the research question, or allows you to answer the research question, So if we have a look back up here, this person writing this here, our independent variable is the number of breaths. So in the experiment here, it says blow up the balloon, but it doesn't say by how many breaths. So this is what we mean by specific and relevant. So it really should be showing you by 1 breath, and then repeat this experiment with 2 breaths, then 3 breaths, so that you're showing that you are relating relevant to the research question to allow you to collect the appropriate data to answer this question. So that's where that one is. Now, if you have a look here, the distance traveled, that's our dependent variable. And the only part that mentions that is measure the distance that the balloon travels. It doesn't say how many times to record it, so number of trials. It doesn't say where to record it from. So it doesn't have like record from the knot on the string as your start point and measure from that point to the end of the straw, to the front of the straw. Like all of those things are making it more specific. So that is going to be your task. So if we have a look here, and the other thing is writing it in numbered steps. So they've done that, but they haven't done it in past tense. So the string was tied to a chair and an additional support. So in your case, it might be a chair. However, other items were considered for this task. Put the other end of the string through the straw. So the other end of the string was placed through the straw or fed through the straw. The string was then pulled tight and attached to an additional support within the room. String was checked for straightness if you're not looking at angle of the string, and then you would continue on. So you might even say what type of string you had if you want to be very specific about that, what type of balloons you've got. If you don't know those things, you don't need to add them. It's okay. You want to make sure that your methodology, again, is repeatable, and has the appropriate details in it. So if the case of blow up the balloon, make sure the appropriate person, so is blowing that up. And measure the distance. So state how you're measuring the distance and what type of tool you're using. So describing your methodology, things that you should be considering or including to ensure that you are aiming for the sufficient and relevant is the number of trials, how you're measuring, what else is there, how you're measuring, and anything else that might be specific for yours to ensure that you are able to allow your reader to collect sufficient and relevant data. Now, the last thing you want to make sure of is this part here mentions annotated diagram. So you have a look. Is there a method supported by an annotated diagram? Now this will be a lot easier for you than actually being like, step 1, the string was attached to this. Step 2, step 3, and so forth. What you can do is be like, step 1, apparatus or equipment was set up as per diagram, see figure 1. And then you would have it that way. A picture tells 1,000 words. It's going to be a lot easier for you to be able to explain that. Make sure that you're being specific, sufficient, and relevant, so that the information is allowing your reader to help you, allows your method to answer the research question. Now, when you do this section, I would suggest you do it in pencil. You do it on your task sheet or the template that you've got. And what you're going to do is, if you're stuck, briefly outline what you're going to do. The day that you do the experiment, I want you to go back and rewrite that as you're doing the experiment. So while you're waiting for trials to happen, you could probably have a couple of people scribing while the other people are doing the trials and then explaining the steps that you're taking as a group to complete this task. That way, the experiment, your methodology reflects what you actually did on the day when you actually conducted the experiment. So keep that in mind. Use this as, remember, it's a draft. We're getting started. It doesn't need to be perfect the first time. It needs to be, relevant enough so that there's enough detail there in order for you to actually collect the appropriate data to answer your research question. Okay, so pause this video, stop this video, go back and rewind if you're stuck again, and start writing your methodology. Step points, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever, however many points you have. Make sure that you include information that allows the reader to understand how you used the equipment, how you changed the variables, and how you measured everything and what you kept the same. Okay, that's the methodology. Thanks.